7:30. Good evening, everyone. It being 7:30 on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023, we will begin our town council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for all those who serve in our military, at home and abroad, and for their families. Thank you. Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Barrica?
Here.
Councilor Flaherty?
Here.
Councilor Hume?
Here.
Councilor Mackin?
Here.
Councilor Maglio?
Here.
Councilor O'Brien?
Present.
Councilor Reynolds?
Here.
Councilor Ringus is not attending this evening. Councilor Ryan?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, and thank you again for being here this evening. I know we have a larger than normal attendance tonight, and I know many of you are here regarding the Clean Harbors fire. And for those wishing to speak, we are looking forward to hearing from you. Before we begin that portion of tonight's agenda, the council has a few announcements to make, and it's great to have so many people here for those this evening. And just a few bits of housekeeping before that. If you would like to speak tonight on Clean Harbors, please sign in at the table at the door. We do need your name and address for the record. There are restrooms located right outside the auditorium door to your left, and there's also a water bubbler with cups right beyond that if you'd like to get up and need a drink of water. And before we begin with our official agenda this evening, I'd like to acknowledge that there is one person who is at as many council meetings as the councilors themselves, for whom tonight is her last meeting, and that is Chief of Staff Nicole Taub. And Nicole, I'd like to say on behalf of the council, thank you for your service to the town. And if you'd like to say a few words, please feel free to come to the podium.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Ryan, when we talked about me coming back today, wasn't quite expecting such a crowd. And I hope this 25 mic's not on, because certainly there's no need for this to go beyond kind of the words I wanted to say before this body. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody for all of your support over the last 4.5 years, specifically the mayor, as well as Mayor Sullivan, who initially hired me into the role of town solicitor, and particularly this council and those that sat in these seats before you. When I took over the responsibility of Chief of Staff, I had an opportunity to really experience a whole nother side of the community, and I was always so impressed with the generosity and commitment that our residents have for Braintree, and I'm so thankful for how I was welcomed into this community from day one. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of you, to thank the department heads, and most notably to thank BCAM, Jerry, Wes, and Bill for always catching my good side when I stood before this body or in other meetings here in the auditorium. So thank you. I wish everybody all the best of luck. I know there are great things ahead for Braintree, and I look forward very much to watching them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief of Staff Taub. Right, we'll move on to our announcements. The first is a charter review update, and for that I'll turn to Councilor Hume, who sits on the Charter Review Committee along with Councilor Ringus.
Thank you, Madam President. The Charter Review Committee has held public meetings here in Town Hall. Our next one is this Saturday, March 4th at 1 p.m. It's here on Saturday. If you come, if you have any input on the charter, what you like to see change, what you like, what you don't like, the committee will be here to listen to any input. We've done scattered times to accommodate working families, parents with young kids who may have activities on Saturday morning, so that's why we're holding it at Saturday at 1 p.m. We've had one in the evening as well. So again, Saturday, March 4th, 1 p.m. This is the document that controls how the legislative and executive side of government in town works. So this is crucially important. If you ever want to see change, this is where how this body, the town council, is governed by. So it is so hugely important. All your input is appreciated. If you can't attend, you can reach out to any of us. As Madam President said, I am on it as well as Councilor Ringus. You can always reach out to the clerk of the council if you have any feedback, input, or how to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hume. All right, moving on to our student artwork. And it's really great to have so many people here this evening. Last year, we introduced public art to the council chamber, and I hope and believe it's made the chambers brighter and more welcoming and inspired some creative problem solving. Tonight, we have the latest installment from our Braintree Public School students, and I'd like to thank them and our art director, Julie Camposano, as well as the Braintree Public School Art Department for making this all possible. And if you're watching from home, please stop by Town Hall to see the artwork for yourself. So from Braintree High School, we have Emma Connor, Susanna Bergster, Nathaniel Flaherty, and Yao Mong. From South Middle School, we have Gabriella Zhang, Mei Lin Den, Aliyah Moquette, Mia Marcarelli. And from Ross Elementary School, we have Bernardo Fermo, Ayana Patel, and Julia Vittoria. So again, thank you to all of our wonderful students. We really, really appreciate the work you've done to help brighten up our council chambers. All right, with that, any other announcements from councilors? Councilor Ryan?
Thank you. Just wanted to make an announcement that the Committee on Personnel Issues will be meeting to vote on the reappointment of James Casey, the town clerk, and Susan Semino, the clerk of the council. And in this, you know, it's such a tough work environment to hire qualified people into positions, and we're so lucky to have these two that work for us. And so we'll be bringing that up at a future meeting, and I look forward to that discussion. And on the same note, with Nicole Taub leaving, I just want to wish her the best of luck. You know, we're lucky we have so many great people that work here, both full-time and volunteer for the town of Braintree, and it's one of the things that makes Braintree a special community and a special place to live. And I just want to say I really enjoyed working with you, Nicole, and I think you're wonderful, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Any other councilors? Okay, with that, we will move on to our communications for this evening. We are here to talk about Clean Harbors tonight. We're going to move that to after this. So thank you again for choosing to spend your time with us this evening. Tonight, the council's focus is on the hazardous materials fire that occurred at Clean Harbors the evening of February 16th, 2023. The fire engulfed trailers containing hazardous wastes and toxins. Thanks to the speed and professionalism of our firefighters and the mutual aid provided by the surrounding communities, the fire was extinguished in about 3 hours. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the Braintree Fire Department and those of our neighboring communities for their speedy response that limited the spread of the fire. So please join me in thanking our first responders. Thank you. I think it goes without saying that the health and safety of our residents is the primary responsibility of local government. This near miss serves as a call to action, and I would like to thank the officials who responded to my request to speak before the council this evening, including Mayor Kokoros, Fire Chief O'Brien, and executives from Clean Harbors. I'd also like to thank officials from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, some of whom are with us this evening to hear from you, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, Representative Mark Cusack, Senator Timilty, and Congressman Lynch, who joined me, Councilor Maglio, and Councilor Flaherty, as well as the mayor, the fire chief, and Captain Pistorino last Friday to tour the Clean Harbors facility. In addition to the advocacy of your local officials and our state delegation, Congressman Lynch has been working at the federal level on our behalf. So thank you, Congressman. Let me lay out the ground rules for tonight so everyone knows what to expect. First, we will hear from the mayor, and then the fire chief, and finally, we will hear from representatives from Clean Harbors. Councilors will be allowed to ask questions if they so choose of those three. After that, councilors will offer their remarks. Then residents who wish to speak again, please sign in. We do need your name and address for the record, and I will call you to the podium. I have invited Clean Harbors here tonight so they can hear it directly from you. As is always the case, decorum and civility is expected in the council chamber. There will be no interrupting of speakers, be it verbal or through applause. Differing opinions will be respected, and personal attacks will not be tolerated. The councilors and others in attendance are here to listen, so there will be no back and forth dialogue with speakers at the podium. We want to hear from as many people as possible, and residents may speak for up to 3 minutes. You will hear me tap the gavel once when you have 30 seconds remaining, and I will tap the gavel twice or otherwise let you know when your time is up. It's important to know this will not be your only opportunity to weigh in on this matter. And for those who are watching from home or would rather not speak in front of a crowd, you can make your concerns known through email to the council. It's towncouncil@braintreema.gov. And your questions will be addressed. After all in-person comments have been made, we have some written comments that have come into the council, and several of us will read those into the record. After that, if anyone from the mayor's office or Clean Harbors would like to address any of the comments they heard, they will have the opportunity to do so. Last but importantly, I want you to know that because the fire remains under investigation, it is likely that many questions will not be answered tonight. So I have asked the clerk of the council that all comments and questions, spoken and written, will be compiled, submitted to the appropriate parties, and my expectation is that they will be answered at a future council meeting, right now tentatively scheduled for our March 21st, 2023 meeting. Additionally, I will make sure that all questions, comments, and responses are published on the town council website. We too want answers, and the council will continue to pursue this matter for as long as necessary. So at this time, and thank you for your attention, I will invite Mayor Kokoros to the podium.
Thank you, Madam President, councilors. First, I want to start off by saying that on the evening of the fire, I did have a post put out at 11 p.m. when I arrived out of an abundance of caution. At that point, we were still investigating as to where the fire was exactly on the site and what was burning. And I will say that I should have made a robocall at minimal the next morning to explain what had transpired and that it was safe for folks to go outside. And I do apologize to the residents of East Braintree, the residents of the town of Braintree for that. But as far as where we've gone from here, that Friday, we spent a number of hours meeting with members of the DEP, Clean Harbors, my staff, building department, health department, fire department. So this particular fire, which occurred in a trailer that did not have any fire suppression, is unacceptable. And because of that, I've taken many steps over the past several days, and this has consumed much of my time, as it should. And we have worked directly with the DEP, and I will add that they have been extremely helpful in working through this. Clean Harbors is not currently operating the business as usual, and I know that the councilors, when they come over and visited the site, we did the tour, along with the congressman, senator, and representative. We talked about removing the existing trailers that were there and all of the debris from the fire. So that has been going on with a two-person fire detail, as well as a piece of fire apparatus to make sure, paid for by Clean Harbors, to make sure that we eliminate all of the trailers that were part of the original permit. We have had numerous meetings to talk about taking care of the immediate situation of these items on site. And I am confident that we will make sure that these things are removed, and there will be discussion before operation continues or is allowed to continue on the site. There are a number of things that we've identified that need to be addressed. For example, there's a fire hydrant that was not properly working on Hill, as well as the fact that there was no fire suppression. I have asked the DP to work with us to not allow those trailers to be parked there, so that there wouldn't be anything stored in those trailers outside. And there was a potential permit of 24 of those trailers. So what caused this fire is still under investigation, but the trailers are where the fire happened, and the trailers are currently being removed from the site, and we have made a commitment to make sure that they do not have any trailers on the site with these particular substances until we've had conversations. And we have a number of issues that would have to be addressed before we can even go down that road. So as of today, and I think we've pretty much met at least every day to talk about this, and not just with staff, and not just with Clean Harbors, with our senators, our rep, our congressmen, and the DEP, more importantly. They have been a great partner to Braintree in this situation, and Millie in particular has been wonderful and helpful. And we've been able to stop the normal operations of Clean Harbors because of this fire in order for this investigation to continue. And we have been able to move forward to get all of these items off site in the meantime. And I am committed to continue to work with the DEP to make sure that nothing happens on this site until we are absolutely sure that we have created every safeguard possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief O'Brien?
Good evening. To reiterate what the mayor said, the DEP has been fantastic. The reps from Clean Harbors have been off the charts cooperative. Been a unfortunate pleasure, I guess, to work with you guys in this capacity, but can't say enough about the relationship that's been formed between fire department, the mayor's office, DEP, council, etc. I know there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked tonight, and rightfully so. In particular, I'm sure about the air quality in East Braintree as well as the entire town, where things such as the wastewater went, so on and so forth. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk you through what we encountered as far as the fire itself, as far as any problems that we ran into, and I'll take any questions that you may have. So on the 16th of this month, we, at 10 o'clock, I'm sorry, I got my papers here. We responded to an alarm of fire for 1 Hill Ave, which is Clean Harbors. It was a struck box, came through on a private alarm. So that would be engine 3, engine 1, and ladder 2 that responded. Within 10 minutes of arrival, a second alarm was struck, which means that all the apparatus in Braintree responds to the scene. It triggers mutual aid to not only come to the scene to assist, but to cover our stations as well. The biggest problem we encountered right off the bat was the inoperable hydrant. We ended up, for those of you not familiar with the protocols of the fire department, which I don't blame you, some of it's pretty boring, usually you grab the first hydrant. The first engine in goes right to the fire. Second engine in will grab the hydrant and lay a line. They hook up to the hydrant and drive right up to the engine and hook in to the pump. That was done with about 1,500 feet of hose, which is a very, very long lay. A lot of work to get that down and much more work to pick it up. After laying the line, connecting the hydrant with the pump, it was discovered there was no water pressure. So we had to utilize the hydrants within the Clean Harbors facility, which thankfully there was plenty of water pressure. What that did was the delay in the hydrant hookup allowed the spread of the fire to go from trailers 4 and 5 to trailers 2 and 3. There was 8 trailers in total lined up right in a row, side by side, I should say, and probably 2 feet apart distance, 3 feet maybe. Obviously, that caused a problem for us. By the time we got hooked up to a hydrant, we had the first ladder truck and the aerial just do what we could with the contents of all those trailers. And another problem we ran into was when we pull up to a scene like that, which is not very often, to be really honest. So we've been very lucky. Clean Harbors has run that facility very well, and we've never had an incident like that there. But what we do rely upon is the placards on those trailers. If we can get close enough, and we can see them, we have manuals that we can look up within 30 seconds, and we know what's contained in those trailers. That ability was not afforded to us because that fire was so intense, it melted the placards off of the trailers. So we were kind of just dousing with water. That's the only thing we could do. We didn't know what was in there, and we also didn't know that the contents of that were water resistant. So in that case, the best case scenario was to surround and drown with 2 ladder trucks and an engine. And what that does is cool any trailer that isn't burning and keeps the potential from spreading. And the men and women of the Braintree Fire Department did an unbelievable job, I can tell you that. And I think the mayor will tell you that as well. Really, really great job under those circumstances. So in addition to that issue with the hydrant inside, we had plenty of water pressure inside the facility. And where the trailers were, there was a hydrant to the left of the trailers, but those things were going, trying to watch my language here, they were going pretty intense. So I wasn't going to send an engine to hook up to a hydrant with a trailer less than 20 feet away that was fully involved, or had the potential to be fully involved. The last trailer that we kept from burning had approximately, and Rich, you may be able to correct me on this, about 5,000 gallons of high BTU fuel? Okay. So while it wasn't explosive, which we didn't know at the time, it's highly flammable. So what we have to do is take precautions, again, to keep that trailer cooled, to keep that potentially from going up and spreading to the building behind it or anything near it. So we did that with some creative use of the hydrants to the right side of the facility. There was actually 2 hydrants to the left that we couldn't get to. we tried to send one of the mutual aid companies on the other side of the fence, which would be the Quirk property, to kind of surround and drown from that end. But the hydrant inside the Quirk property did not work either. So we had our troubles for sure, but we got done what was necessary at the time. And Clean Harbors reps were on the scene within 10 minutes. And a lot of those chemicals that we were unsure of, a lot of the waste product, Rich in particular was very, very helpful. And that allowed us to adjust our, the way we fought that fire, which was extremely careful. We ended up backing up behind the fence, the gated fence, which the council saw on the, our field trip, so to speak. As the mayor said, we've had meetings every day, every night almost. We were both at the facility at 7:30 the following morning after getting home at 2:30, 3 o'clock, I'm not sure when it was. And the mayor was very, very cautious in making sure that the air quality was good. Now, the Coast Guard had done some testing, not only in the water, but the air control around the neighborhoods. Clean Harbors did it in the facility itself and right around the facility. The DEP was doing it, and the next morning, the mayor and I, as well as one of the reps from Clean Harbors, went through the neighborhoods with a meter, and the highest reading that we got was 0.8, and that was when we drove right past Citgo. Everything else was 0.2. We were testing for potential toxins in the air. So while it's still under investigation, we don't know what those chemicals are yet and what was mixed, so on and so forth. So I know there was a great, great concern for the air quality. I can tell you from the readings, they didn't register all that high. They were well within the norms. Another issue that would probably, I'm assuming, be brought up is the wastewater that was used by us that turned into wastewater. We poured approximately 400,000 gallons of water to extinguish that fire. When that water hits those chemicals, it becomes wastewater. Thankfully, Clean Harbors has a self-containment area in the back. There's a berm there. None of that water went into the Fall River. They filled 13 tankers, 15 tankers of 22,000 gallons each, I believe, and then some. So, and I believe that water is still on site, just waiting to be transported, correct? Okay. So, all in all, while we never want to see anything like this, I can tell you I have the protocol, excuse me, the SOG from the Braintree Fire Department, and Captain Pistorino and myself went over it the next day, and lo and behold, it was followed to a T. And this SOG is from 2000.
Chief, SOG stands for?
Standard Operating Guidelines,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. So we were happy with that. We were happy that nobody got hurt, obviously, and we were happy with the containment of the fire. I think the weather was on our side. It was a damp night. I think that moisture kind of tamped down the possibility of it spreading any farther. And overall, it went as well as it could be. So any questions you may have, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. At this time, I'll open it up to the counselors who may have questions for the chief. Counselor Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Did you say you don't know what chemicals were there? Is that not known yet?
We have the manifests from each trailer that Clean Harbors provided to us. Okay. So reading through it, we do know the chemicals. We're just not sure of the actual origin quite yet. Okay. We know that it started in trailer 4 or 5, and how it started, we don't know. Right now, we're thinking it's self-reacting, but I will certainly let Clean Harbors and the DEP speak on that.
Okay, I'll hold that. And your department has done multiple trainings throughout the years for this property in particular, correct?
Correct.
And all went according to plan, as you said, right?
It did.
Oh, men and
Scarily
women
so, yes,
safe?
it did.
Yep, okay. And the hydrants that you said on the Clean Harbor site, are those town-owned? Are they on private land, private roadways?
They're actually fed from Citgo, from a 10-inch main, which goes into an 8-inch main, which really, really helped us out. The hydrant on Hill Ave was a 6-inch main, and in speaking with Lou Dutton and John Thompson, they're going to address that hydrant situation going forward.
Okay. Have those been like flushed, you know, when the fire department flushes hydrants? Like, have those been done?
That's the water department that does that. We don't,
Okay.
we actually have nothing to do with the hydrants except to
Okay.
use them.
Water, that's right. All right, I'll follow up with this later. Yep, okay, I'm good.
Thank you, Counselor Hume. Counselor Flaherty.
Hydrants, did you try to use total? That didn't work?
Two. One on town property and one on Quirk property.
Okay, and how frequently are hydrants tested? Is there a difference between how frequently they're tested on town property versus private property?
Again, the water department would be able to answer that question. I really don't know how often the testing goes on. They do inform us. They inform our dispatch when the testing is going on.
Okay, thank you. Can you characterize for those of us who don't know very much about it, what kind of training the department has been doing regularly to contend with a situation at this location?
So, since Clean Harbor's opened in 86, 87, right around there, we've been pretty active up there. We basically do tours, and they go soup to nuts. They show us the entire plant, how the waste is solidified, transferred, what they do on a daily basis. When it first opened, I believe there was quite a bit more employees at that particular plant than there are now, because I believe they did burn the stuff there at the time, and now they don't. It's just a transfer station. So we do the tours. We go into the tank farm. We check out the foam system, things like that. There's really not a lot else we can do to prepare for that except familiarize ourselves with the facility and what's inside of it.
So you're familiar with the kinds of chemicals that they regularly handle?
Somewhat.
Okay. And you have a hazardous materials officer?
We do.
That's right. Okay. And can you characterize for me the kinds of the training and experience that goes into a person before they assume the role of hazardous materials officer?
I can let him speak. He's right here.
Captain Pistorino.
This is, Captain Bob Pistorino, Braintree Fire.
The training is on-the-job training. There was no specific training for the hazardous materials officer's job. I was trained by my predecessor, and we just constantly learn as we go. There's no state certification at the Fire Academy for hazardous materials officer. There's hazardous material technicians. We have hazardous material teams, neither of which I am a part of, but there is no hazardous material officers course offered through the Fire Academy.
So you contend with hazardous materials when there's an emergency?
I basically do permits, and people have permits for certain stuff, and I go out and I do inspections, and I issue permits, and that's what I do.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Maglio.
Captain Pistorino, I would like to follow up on that. What kind of permits do you issue?
I have permits for above-ground storage, usually diesel, underground storage, propane, acetylene. There's a whole list of them. People do permits for oil burners, oil tanks, stuff like that.
And so when you're issuing these permits,
Yep.
on what basis do they get issued? If there's no training, is there guidelines around it? Like what? Why would you issue a permit or not issue a permit?
The state fire code determines what you need to have a permit.
And the state fire code covers all of the chemicals
Yep.
that are in place? at the-
Categories, not individual chemicals, but they'd have categories. And I did do the training. I took the Fire Academy's course on, what's Leo's job? Fire prevention. That's what's all in the fire prevention code. So it's in the code for fire prevention. Determines when you need a permit and when you need a license. And the fire department deals with permits, and the town clerk's office deals with licenses.
So the clerk issues the license that allows them to get the permit, like which comes first, the permit or the license?
They would have to fill out a form, a FP6 form, that comes from the State Fire Marshal's office, notifying us that they're going to have this stuff here. And I go out, and depending on what it is, there's certain requirements that they're held to. And then I issue the permit.
And where would we see those requirements?
I'm sure I have them somewhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We can get you a copy of the state codes to the entire council if that's,
Please, that would be
Sure.
great. Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Counselor Reynolds?
Chief, I think this might be a question for you. So just to follow up on the standard operating guidelines, the SOG, they were followed. A couple of questions on that. Do the guidelines include potential air quality testing or the release of hazardous chemicals into the air in a real-time basis?
yes.
They do. And the means of the standard, or what the collection of the data in real time, and then what that triggers from a decision standpoint of your command and control. Could you just walk through that a little bit?
Sure. So, believe it or not, as archaic as it may sound, there's a windsock that's on Hill Ave, and that's the first thing we look at when we go in there, which way the wind is blowing. I know that's been an issue with this particular incident. We'll then make a determination as to where we place our apparatus to make sure our firefighters are at their optimum safety, which we had to do here as well. We had to move trucks all over the place at different times of this incident. Again, we rely on the reps from Clean Harbors to, once we couldn't read the placards, we really didn't have any idea. So we had to wait for them to arrive, which was very quickly, and we reacted as such.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. So where you've determined the wind direction, important first step, certainly. But the actual, what may be getting released into the air in that direction you've already determined. How, at that point, do you make a determination whether or not you are now dealing with a dangerous situation or an air quality situation that could have an impact to accelerate beyond your initial operating area?
So that's why we, the way we fought the fire pretty much was with our 2 aerial trucks. They were probably 60, 70 feet in the air. We had a steady stream from both ladders to cool those trailers. If we were to take one of the engines and just have a direct line on it, we're going to be dispersing that material all different ways. This is more of a surround and drown, like a shower type of extinguishment.
Okay.
So we thought that was the best way to go about it.
From a fire suppression, yes.
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
clear as a bell, your fire suppression, but it's the other, the release of the potential chemicals into an air. How do you make that determination while you're suppressing the fire with whatever the apparatus you're using, water, foam, or et cetera, based on, I guess, your best knowledge of what type of component is burning, right? From a fire science standpoint, sure, I understand that. But the actual air quality during the event.
Are you speaking to like a meter reading or?
Right. If you could inform me a little bit, let me better understand how the thought process in the moment as you're making decisions on the ground. You had just stated that you weren't quite clear based on the way that the fire had melted or made unreadable the hazardous markings on the sides of the trailer, which would certainly give you, to narrow down what you're dealing with, right? So now, not knowing that, what would you rely upon to determine whether or not that there is in the air anything that is dangerous to folks breathing in? And I know that your firefighters are all very well equipped with masks, et cetera, but this question more to, you've got a wind blowing, say, it starts to move, the wind picks up, what directions is moving towards, say, a civilian population of homes. How would you make a determination of whether or not that you are seeing an increased danger to the abutting residential areas?
So in that particular case, we rely on meter readings, which is why I called for a Tier 1 response from the state hazmat team.
So is that something your team has?
We don't have it. It's from the state.
Okay, so you would have to wait for the state to show on scene.
One of our firefighters was the regional director, I guess is the terminology he used for it, so he was there pretty quick. He lives in Braintree, and I believe there was 6 others that responded as well. They have a meter. Clean Harbors had many meters that they used. I believe the DEP had one, the Coast Guard had one. So our job is to extinguish that fire.
Understood.
We're relying on the help from all of those agencies, the outside agencies, to come in and gauge the toxicity of the air.
Chief, pardon me, Councilor Reynolds, are those readings something that that will be in the public record and could be sent to the council that Councilor Reynolds is referring to?
Again, I don't have possession of these readings. I
We'll
believe,
take-
actually, I believe that we have some handwritten readings that I think I sent to the council.
Okay, well, and let's take that as a follow-up.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
That really is my first concern, and where you brought up the standard operating guidelines, and you have made it clear to me kind of division of responsibilities. And I could see some further on questions I'd like to ask, but for the purposes of where we are at this point, Madam President, I'll just, I'll stop here with the option and maybe with a follow-up question.
Thank you very much. Councilor Ryan?
I'd like to hear from Clean Harbors, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
I think, take one more question from the chief, unless anyone else has. Councilor Maglio, did you have a?
I have one more question for you, Chief.
Sure.
You mentioned that about the problems with the hydrants. Can you estimate how much time elapsed between getting to the scene and getting water to the fire?
If I had to guesstimate, I would say 4 to 5 minutes tops.
Okay.
These guys are very good at what they do, and locating another hydrant is always a priority, of course.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor O'Brien?
Because I would prefer, I'm sorry, I'm going to start again. I'd like to defer because I'd like to hear from Clean Harbors, because I have some questions that may or may not be answered from Clean Harbors, and then I would defer to being able to call up the mayor for one question as well. But after we hear from Clean Harbors, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Brien. Good. Councilor Flaherty?
When you get a call, obviously your first priority is to fight the fire. But in this case, perhaps in any case, there's a worry. What if the fire spreads? And in this case, there are other highly flammable locations like the Citgo tank farm, and there's a lot in the whole basin. And is there a part of your procedure where you make a point to notify the other facilities in the area that might be at risk should the fire spread for any reason?
There's no such protocol in place. And I think if you've ever tried to call Citgo or anybody else at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get anybody. If it were to spread, which I think would be highly improbable to that point, which is a good distance away, we would have struck another box or even went to a general alarm. We would have had apparatus surrounding all those areas to protect those areas.
Okay. And then when there's a fire involving hazardous materials, is there a particular, do we have a policy to identify particular circumstances that would trigger a broad public notification?
Yeah. Again, we don't come across these situations, thankfully, all that often. But we use the mutual aid system, and what we would do when we were on the scene there, myself, Deputy Claggett, we just gauge the situation. We're constantly looking at the plume, where it's going, which direction, if there's any acridity in the air, things like that. And then we'll just adapt on the fly. That's all we can do in that situation.
So you measure the extent of the danger to the public by a visual assessment of the plume and, what it smells like?
Along with the meter readings, yes.
Along with the meter readings. With regard to the meter readings, where in this case you didn't know what was burning, how do you know what to test for or what to measure?
I would have to pass that on to Clean Harbors and the DEP. I don't,
Okay.
we don't have those type of meters, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thank you, counselors. At this time, I'll invite up representatives from Clean Harbors to the podium, and if you can please introduce yourselves and your title, that would be great. Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Madam President. So my name is Becky Underwood. I'm the the President and EVP of Facilities for Clean Harbors. I'm joined with Mike Foley, who's my Senior Vice President of Operations for our transfer, storage, and disposal facilities, as well as Rich Harrington, our Regional Director for the transfer, storage, and disposal facilities, and Steve Ganley, our Site General Manager for the facility, as well as our third-party air quality consultants that are joining us today. Tom Nuno from Tetra Tech. He's also a Massachusetts licensed site professional, and Dyron Hamlin from GHD. First, I want to thank the Mayor Corcoros, Chief O'Brien, the City Council, and the Massachusetts DEP for their comprehensive response, partnership, and oversight for working with us through the entirety and for the safety of the local community throughout the incident. We're grateful that nobody was injured during this incident. As a result of the quick response by the fire department, thank you, and the coordination with the mayor's office and the DEP and all of the first responders, the fire was quickly contained and air monitoring showed no impact from the incident. So, yeah, go ahead.
There's an important question, but so we were using what's called a 4-gas meter, which is measuring oxygen, LEL, which is a lower explosive limit. I'm sorry?
That's really, I'm just wondering how would you know what was burning and what to measure for?
Counselor, let's have Clean Harbors finish their presentation. Please hold questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. So before we get into some of those details, I did want to share with everybody a little bit about Clean Harbors. At Clean Harbors, we provide essential environmental services for Braintree, New England, and all of North America. We employ roughly 1,200 employees in and around Braintree. We are relied on by several of the critical customers that we have, like hospitals, utilities, various government agencies, universities, and people like you to help dispose of your waste safely. We safely handle hazardous waste materials like oil filters, paints, solvents, and general things that you use in your everyday life, like general household waste. We work here in Braintree. We live here together with you, and we share the commitment for protecting the public health and environment of Braintree. We are here because we believe it's important to be accountable and to be collaborative partners with you, especially as we work through this incident. Today, our intent is to share more details about the incident and also, more importantly, hear your concerns and really understand what your concerns are, as well as what's important to you here in Braintree. We are also going to share some of the improvement actions that we're taking to ensure that we can continue to safely operate with all of the appropriate safeguards our facility in Braintree. I have Mike Foley here with me, as I mentioned earlier. He has 35 years with the company, and he's been an integral part of Braintree over these years. He's going to actually walk you through the incident.
Thank you, Becky. So what happened? We obviously the mayor and the fire chief O'Brien kind of laid out some of the facts of the evening and so forth, but I'm just going to reiterate it from Clean Harbor's views. Clearly, we had several fires containing drum quantities of hazardous waste involved in the incident. The fire started in one particular trailer. We know which trailer it started in. That fire also consumed 2 other trailers worth of drums of waste on it. So a total of 3 trailers and the contents were consumed by the fire. The 5 other trailers Chief O'Brien spoke about, making a total of 8, there was some damage to those trailers, but the material inside of those trailers was, the drums were not compromised, and we were able to, after the fire was put out, we were able to remove those drums from the trailer, place them in another working van trailer, and prepared those for moving off-site. So we also reiterated the importance of, we used roughly 400,000 gallons of water to put the fire out. And all that water was contained within the property itself. We have, the entire property is contained with basically concrete walls. We immediately shut off our stormwater treatment system, which enabled us to keep that material inside the property and not be discharged into the Fall River. We also, basically, we cleaned up all the debris from the fire, and we created, roughly speaking, 21 roll-off containers of what I'll call fire debris, which included the trailers, the material that had been consumed by the fire, and so forth. We identified, clearly marked which roll-offs were created from which trailers and so forth. There was no evidence of any offsite contamination. There was no damage to any of the buildings as well. It was at a truck-to-truck dock, what we refer to as a truck-to-truck dock, and there was no damage to the dock itself or the building. And it's also, again, it's just important to note that the containment of the facility did work properly. And so that's essentially kind of what happened, the incident, and what was actually caught on fire. From a root cause standpoint, we've spent a lot of time working with the mayor's office, fire chief, DEP, to ultimately do our MTI, which is a management team investigation. All hands on deck, myself, Becky, and the entire team, complete deep dive into what happened here. And through that effort, we have identified what we believe is the customer that shipped us the material and what that material was. We believe it was a material that is basically spontaneously combusted and set on fire in one of the particular trailers. Our manifesting tracks us back to 3 drum containers, 55-gallon drums that were packaged from a particular customer. It was filter material, and based on the specification of the material, it would have had the ability to spontaneously combust in a certain atmosphere. There were some weather changes that went on over the weeks, and we believe there could have been some condensation that built up on this container, which ultimately started the fire. Within the trailer that initially was on fire, there was various materials on that truck, including paints, epoxies, oil filters and other solvents. So there was a lot of flammable liquid in there that clearly has ability to burn violently like it did in Chief O'Brien described. And so we're working directly with the customer. We have a lot of questions for that customer, how that waste was generated, what may have caused that material to potentially go to off specification on what we expected to get. That's a long process. And so we still have a lot of questions. We've been in communication with that customer. We're not at liberty to say that now because we need to have these conversations with our customer that we can't make that information public quite yet. And we want to be sure we get it right. I mean, at the end of the day, there was a full van trailer worth of drum containers on that truck, and through a process of elimination, we're able to kind of back into what we believed happened. So corrective actions, I think, are important here, clearly. We've spent a lot of time meeting with the town folks, and there's some big kind of changes, if you will, that we think we can make. Number one is we've stopped accepting any of that type of material, specifically from that customer. That's first and foremost. We did check our entire network as well to make sure that there was none of that material within our existing network, and there was one container that we're able to repackage in our El Dorado, Arkansas site and run that through its process through incineration, so it's no longer at risk of setting another trail on fire. We also clearly, there was a van trailer, and one of the clear corrective actions is the spacing on these van trailers. And so we are fully permitted to bring material in and go from one trailer to another trailer. We were operating within our permit, but we can improve on that, and we realize that, and we recognize that based on the feedback we've gotten over the last week or so. And so clearly spacing of these trailers and even re-examining our complete process on how we could ultimately try to run the facility without using trailers to stage material on. We're permitted to stage on for 5 days. We've been operating that for several years. We're learning something from this incident, clearly. We understand we can change and be better, and we're committed to doing that. And so we're looking at ideas on how to change the way we run our facility in not using van trailers as best we can for at least on a timeline of, say, a shift's worth of activity while we bring material in and then move it around to ultimately move out. And so that's a big corrective action of ours. And we have fire suppression within our buildings. And so as if the material is in the buildings and stored properly, we have fire suppression that would have taken care of this, and we wouldn't have had it trailer hopping across and potentially causing more fire. So the next thing I can touch on is just really air quality, clearly a big item for the discussion here tonight. So we've done some things. During the incident, we did our own air modeling through what we call a 4-gas meter. And so we're measuring oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and an LEL, which is a lower explosive limit. What that tells us is that we're not building up volatile organics where you could have an explosion if you had an ignition source. We also use a PID, which again is measuring for volatile organics. And all the results that we took during and after the event in the neighborhood and in the surrounding area of the incident came back with no alarming, nothing past background, and ultimately no readings of concern. Further to that, we can stand up here and tell you folks this all day long, but we did go out and use a third-party vendor that we're familiar with through industry, and a company named Tetra Tech. And so we're using Tetra Tech in conjunction with the mayor's office as well to get a third-party view of this. Tetra Tech set off and did a lot of air monitoring as well, both at the Hill Ave property in numerous locations, as well as some of the surrounding areas around, is it Rosemont Lane, I think, if I get that right? Glen Rose, I apologize. And so we've done that sampling through the third party. We've looked at that data. We've gotten a preliminary report, again stating that there's no readings of concern. We can provide that to you folks after we continue to kind of scrub it and put it in a presentable format. And so we'll be looking to do that. That's the air monitoring side of this. The air modeling side is an important piece of this as well. So we know that we had three trailers completely consumed. And we know what was on those trailers. right down to the manifest, what we call the packing list, which is essentially an inventory of what's in that drum, what the material is, the constituent of that material. And so based on that information, we're going to be working with a third-party air modeling company and to help us analyze that and provide some technical data, if you will, on ultimately, what the potential effects on the air quality could have and would have and is. And so again, we've done that effort. This company has done a preliminary review of the information, and the kind of coming back saying, hey, there's nothing that we think is concerning here, but we need to go off and continue our kind of report and comb through that technical data. We're not here tonight to share that, just because we continue to work that effort. And so that's essentially what happened here. And I'm sure there's more questions, but we want to just kind of lay that out and work from there.
Councilor Maglio?
So my first question is just for some clarification. Your air modeling, does that mean that you look to see where those particulates go? So you're testing the air, but then they leave the air at some point, and they fall to the ground, and they fall to the water, or they fall on people's car roofs or their home roofs. Is testing that part of the air modeling?
Yes, it is. We did bring these folks here tonight. I am not the air expert here, and so I don't want to misspeak. And that, if you have the direct question, I think you could take a swing at that if you could.
Thank you. If you can state your name and affiliation.
Sure thing. So hi, I'm Dyron Hamlin. I'm with GHD consulting firm. I'm based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. Respond to fires of this type quite a bit. But yes, in general, we will be able to provide that kind of output of surface deposition with the modeling.
And at what point will you actually test the ground?
No plans in place right now to do that, but certainly if the modeling was to inform, something like that was needed, would be something we could look into.
So just for clarification, so the modeling is going to show the direction of the plume and the chemicals and the smoke and the various things that were in the air. And then at a certain point, they leave the air. So the modeling will tell you where they went?
That is the goal, yes.
But there will be no testing as to where they went?
Like I said, there's no plans to do that right now, but that would be something that could be done to verify the model.
Is that depending on, so the modeling might say that there was nothing in the air, therefore nothing could fall to the ground? Like, I don't understand where it would go and why we wouldn't want to know what is all over everyone's home.
Sure, it's always a possibility with fire that you will get some material depositing. It's also possible that it would be at a level that's not detectable. So it really does kind of depend on, the results of our analysis, which, like Mike said, we're still working on.
Is there a timeline for that? I'm just curious.
As fast as we can.
Councilor Maglio, if I may,
Yes.
I would recommend and suggest that we put the more specifics for the air modeling onto our March 21st agenda.
Great.
For follow-up.
Great, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you. So I want to thank Mayor Kokoris for all the work that he's done to try to investigate what happened there and make sure it doesn't happen again. I want to thank Chief O'Brien and Captain Pistorino for being here tonight too and telling us what they did to combat this fire. It's just, when I think of Clean Harbors, I think of like the leaders in remediation in the world. Like, if you want things done correctly, you call Clean Harbors to come to your contaminated site. If you're getting PCB remediation or waste cleanup, you call Clean Harbors and they know what they're doing. And it's very discouraging for me as a Braintree Town Council and a resident of Braintree to hear that this type of situation could happen in my town, Braintree, in our town, everybody here tonight. And it just seems like the ball was very much dropped in this situation by Clean Harbors to have what you have described earlier as material stored in a trailer that instantaneously combusted because of environmental conditions, stored with flammable materials in the same trailer in an area that had no fire suppression. It sounds like, what's going on at Clean Harbors and Braintree? It's, you know, you mentioned there was no damage. There's a lot of damage to Clean Harbors and to your reputation in the town of Braintree. And all these people that are sitting here tonight live in East Braintree, and they're concerned. Thank you. They're concerned about their homes and the air that they're breathing. And I'm very concerned. And, you know, even our fire department got up and our mayor got up and said there's things they could have done a little better and lessons learned. And I think that's something we have to look at very closely here tonight. What type of lessons learned, and that this is never going to happen again. Because I would not want to see Clean Harbors reopen if there's a possibility that this is going to happen again. I would like to not issue your permits for the use of this property unless you can assure the residents in the town of Braintree that this type of scenario is not going to reoccur, where we have, you know, just mismanagement of this material that you bring into our town. You go into sites that need to be remediated and cleaned up, and you're bringing this material into Braintree. And it's a problem for us now. And we have people that, you know, live close by this facility, and who knows what air they were breathing in the other night. And it's, I can't tell them. And if you're going with the meter that has O2, CO, H2S, and LEL, that sounds like a meter you're going to use in a confined space to make sure it's okay to go into a confined space. And I know a little bit about this. And it doesn't seem like it's a meter that's really going to tell you if hazardous waste is burning, what's being dissipated into the atmosphere. And I don't think, I'd love to hear from the experts to come up and tell me what types of things could have been dispersed in the atmosphere. So I don't have any confidence with people riding around with checking the LEL and the H2S. There was nothing generating H2S in the atmosphere. So I'm very concerned with Clean Harbors, and I really hope that you're going to take a very hard look at how this facility operates, and you're going to be able to demonstrate and assure us that this situation is not going to happen again when if and when you reopen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Councilor O'Brien?
President, I don't want to act like I'm glomming on, but I 100% agree with the previous speaker. And what's more concerning for me was that there is rumor, and the chief can get up and address this if he wants, but I'd rather just leave you guys here for now. There's rumor that the fire department couldn't even get onto the site because there was a potential for a lock gate. Now, in your documentation, it says the police are supposed to be responsible for certain lock gates, but if fire couldn't get through, that's a bit of a concern. But that's hearsay, so I don't know that for a fact, and I haven't seen that written anywhere, but it has been mentioned to me, so that would be something that is, of course, concerning. The other thing is when you perform your root cause analysis, I'd like to know how you have trailers filled with stuff, and you're seemingly telling us, as the previous speaker said, you guys are the experts. You're seemingly telling us you don't know what's in it. I mean, that's not exactly what you said, but that's what you said. So you have a manifesto, but you don't know what's in it. Sounds to me like it might have been PFAS, inflammatory, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not the expert. You guys are. And it was disappointing. As for the trailer separation, that's something that I think it would have been good to know that ahead of time, and more importantly, on the suppression, I did read that you have the suppression internally. These kinds of things probably should have been stored internally. You've already said that you're going to address it, and that's all well and fine. As to your license was just fairly renewed for a 5-year term. I have to say the administration didn't object to your license. So you got permitted, and I believe the license said it was for another 5 years. I believe the license is up in '24, and I think this body will take a much harder look at that. Sadly, we should have taken a harder look at it before. And I know that there's residents concerned. There's PCB readings and stuff in the East Braintree that we really need to put more analysis on and attention to. And I think we're going to do that. Unfortunately, it takes a situation like this to have that, to be able to address these things. And I'm sure I'll have more, but one last question I had. You said the site was completely contained, and that's good to know. But at what point would that site have been saturated? I think the residents would like to know that. I heard 15 tractor trailers or some form of equipment at 22,000 gallons each, and there's still more. So if I was right, 400,000 gallons of fluid, 400,000, what is your max? I'd like to know that for the residents' sake, because what happens after the 400,000? Because clearly, we were told by the previous speaker that someone from your organization showed up, and yet still they were dousing water on something that was not going to go off with just water. It needed something else. And that's also something that I think we need to look inward at to make sure that we do have some form of fire suppression capability, particularly with the advent of Teslas and other electric cars that are highly flammable, and water isn't going to put those out.
Right.
Thank you very much. I'll let you speak.
I mean, we're taking your feedback. We want to continue to keep open lines of communication. We want to do the right thing. We appreciate your nice comments because we do pride our company on being a leader in the industry of environmental services. Clearly, this was a very concerning incident. We are going to do everything we possibly can to prevent this in the future. We can get better from it. We're committed to doing that, and we appreciate your feedback. We hear you loud and clear.
And it's completely in line with the previous speaker and completely in line with our concern, because I gather you will come back with the $400,000 400,000 liter or whatever gallons of liquid. But one last thing I just want to say. We received from your company, Becky, I'm going to speak to you as the leader. We received from your company in August a document that we just received tonight, which is called your contingency plan. This was in August of '22. I have it, it's dated, it's in my inbox. They had the chief of police listed in there. That was at least 2, maybe 3 chiefs ago. Now it's been updated. We received it today. But of course, that leaves me with great pause, because then I say to myself, what are you guys doing on a constant basis if that thing was so out of date in August? And yes, I could have read it, and I could have challenged you guys on that, being that it was so outdated. But now we have an updated one. I'm sorry, but with the kind of stuff you guys are dealing with and that the town has to accept because you're here, and you know, we welcome your business if it's safe, but if it's not, that's a different story. So the fact that this wasn't updated as of August, and it was multiple police chiefs ago, tells me that nobody's really looking at this. And I'm afraid maybe you're asleep at the switch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Brien. Did you want to respond to that, or can move on to another speaker?
Yes, so I'll respond. So appreciate you bringing that up. I think like any incident, right, we're going to identify improvement areas, and we have improvements to make ourselves. That is clearly one of them. In fact, as we met with some of the members, right, of this team late last week, we did discuss some of those types of issues, and we're committed to fixing those. Thank you.
Councilor Hume?
Thank you, Madam President. Well done, Councilor Ryan, on your comments. I have questions. I'm going to hold my questions because we have many residents here tonight who want to speak, so I want to give ample time to that, because we're not done with this tonight. This will be on the council agenda. Normally, items will get referred to public safety. I serve as chair of public safety, talk to the councilor and other members of that committee, and we're keeping it on the council agenda so BCAM can cover it, so residents can come, but we won't be done tonight. So I'm going to defer my comments and questions tonight to the public.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hume. Councilor Maglio?
So I have some comments that I'd like to make. And I have prepared these remarks, and I'd like to, this has to do with Clean Harbors. It also has to do with where you are doing business. And I want to start by asking a question of whose job is it? Whose job is it to make sure humans and infrastructure are safe? Is it Braintree? Is it the town? Is it the South Shore, some sort of regional network? Is it Massachusetts state agencies? Is it the federal government? Which agencies? Who is charged with that? The answer is we have to wait until people get hurt or die before anybody does anything significant. We have critical regional infrastructure right here in the basin that you do business in, that we live next to, that we can see from our living room. And the biggest part of it is the compressor station. Do you realize that the compressor operates at 250 times more pressure than the Merrimack Valley disaster? It's a FEMA flood zone. It's in a heavily populated area where methane and benzene are routinely leaked and vented, and where they've had multiple emergency system failures dating back to 2021. Next to that is the Four River Bridge. 32,000 cars a day pass over the Four River Bridge. There's no way responders would ever be able to get from one side to the other if the bridge even stood standing, if there was to be a catastrophic incident. It's a shipping lane, a port. We have giant tankers full of gasoline that go in and out under the Four River Bridge, that pass within a stone's throw of the Enbridge compressor station, pull right up to Citgo. If that fire was bigger at Clean Harbors, they would not have been able to leave, because they can only leave when the bridge goes up, and in daylight and in high tide. So there's a tanker full of gas right there. Next to that is the Calpine Electric Plant. Next to that is, on the other side, is the MWRA. Do you know what would happen if sewage went out for homes all the way through Randolph, Braintree, Holbrook? There's also around the basin, we have the Sprague Fuel, we have Twin Rivers, we have fertilizer manufacturing, we have Citgo fuel tanks, the Braintree Electric Light Company, and then we have Clean Harbors, the hazardous waste site. You are just one of many of those industries, but you're the largest treatment, storage, and disposal facility of toxic waste, and yours places where the fire happened. So you're the ones that we need to look at for leadership on this, and to help us make a difference, and to help us be safer. Now, the fact that this is all happening in a blast zone, in this blast zone, that's the Four River Basin. That's a high concentration of hazardous materials. That's millions of gallons of diesel fuel, 200,000 cubic feet of compressed hydrogen gas, thousands and thousands of gallons of ammonia, of sulfuric acid, of sodium hydroxide, of sewage, actual sewage. According to a report for the Greater Boston Physicians for Social Responsibility, a two-minute leak of methane gas, if you were 1,000 feet away, after only 60 seconds of exposure, you'd have painful burns. If you were 500 feet away, after only 60 seconds of exposure, you'd have second-degree burns. If you were within 500 feet, as most of us are to you, only 60 seconds of exposure, and we're dead. It's lethal. That's 60 seconds. So those 4 or 5 minutes to get to the hydrant, or to get through the gate, or to find a hydrant, or to call the guy, or to figure out where the placards are, all of that is deadly to first responders, to your staff, to people just driving by or walking their dog or trying to go to bed. So again, I ask, who is responsible? The state says local boards of health are responsible. Local boards of health are saddled with these toxic nightmares, but also charged with having some responsibility for developing, testing, and building awareness of emergency preparedness plans for hazards. Also, the regulators, DEP, glad you're here tonight, but DEP, you're regulating this industry. They're all here because you allow them to be here. So the fact that you're driving through my neighborhood at 2 in the morning, waving a wand out the window, sorry, doesn't make me feel safe. So what I'm asking is a collaborative approach from state officials to address and mitigate the industry-related health risks for the community as a whole, with a special note that this is an environmental justice zone. We already have the worst kind of health nightmares that you can imagine. I'm asking for an emergency and evacuation plan that actually exists. If we can't get a robocall, how do we get everybody out? It doesn't make sense. I'm also asking for compensation. You're the leader in the industry, you've got a lot of money, and there's a lot of money that was spent cleaning up this waste that will also be spent trying to respond and create good evacuation plans that actually work, that there are drills, that people practice, that the phones work, that the monitors work, that the hydrants work. All of that takes time and money. That's an investment, that's a cost, and we're looking at you. The last is the documentation of securities in place, because the whole other thing that we're not even talking about is the fact that we need to be protecting these areas as part of homeland security measures. These are very vulnerable to terrorist attacks, and these are issues that are a gate, the gate isn't really going to stop someone who's really out to create a major terrorist incident. So I would ask that any official, any kind of official anywhere, has stated that they're not worried about a catastrophic event, that everything's fine, it's taken care of, we're taking the steps, it's all fine, that they need to be relieved of their duties, because that's the kind of thinking that's going to get us all killed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Before we get to public comment this evening, I do have a memo from Councillor Ringus, who could not join us tonight, but he asked me to read it into the record, so I will do that now. Good evening. First off, my apologies for my absence tonight, but unfortunately I had a previous obligation which did not allow my attendance at tonight's meeting. I know the incident at Clean Harbors on Thursday, February 16th, as well as the initial response and aftermath, is of critical importance to so many. I will be reviewing tonight's meeting and answers to questions posed by residents and my fellow councilors, and expect to have follow-up questions as this situation continues to unfold over the coming weeks. Before continuing, I did want to acknowledge and thank Braintree Fire and other responding agencies for their bravery and professionalism in controlling this incident and ensuring this fire was contained in a relatively short period of time. An incident of this nature and at such a location is full of unknowns and potential catastrophe, and the abilities of our firefighters were on display in their response to this situation. I stand with the residents of East Braintree and our town as a whole in their endeavor to find out more information about this incident and its aftermath. I look forward to a review and discussion of various investigative reports that are to be promulgated, especially as to causation. I further envision future meetings with Clean Harbors to ensure steps are being taken as to the prevention of similar incidents and as to how any environmental concerns are being addressed. I have spoken with many residents of the surrounding area and understand the fear, apprehension, and disappointment they feel about this incident, the notifications they received, and the uncertainty around future incidents. When I was a member of the school committee and was asked what the most important part of that role was, I always answered the safety of students and staff. Occasionally, someone might push back with, "Isn't the #1 priority education?" To which I would respond with, "If a student is not safe or does not feel safe, they will never be able to take full advantage of a comprehensive educational experience." This same principle applies to all of our residents. Simply put, if a resident is not safe or does not feel safe, their quality of life is diminished. It is clear from discussions I have had with residents of East Braintree that many do not feel safe or adequately prepared for what a disaster in the area of East Braintree might bring. My sincerest hope is that this conversation tonight will be a starting point, leading to future discussions and resolution to issues facing residents of East Braintree. I expect Clean Harbors will appear before the council again, as we often request, as to the steps being taken to ensure prevention of future incidents. As a member of the Public Safety Subcommittee, I would hope that additional hearings will be held in front of that body as to this incident, emergency preparedness around similar issues, and proper safety planning as to any future major incidents. Thank you, David Ringus, Councillor at Large. Wait, I'll do the public first. Yeah. Okay. That's good. Councillor Reynolds? I'm sorry, I apologize for not recognizing you earlier.
So I just wanted to, I wanted to first commend the councilors who spoke out in such an articulate and concerning manner about their take and their concerns about the safety of the people of Braintree, and in particular that neighborhood that abut Clean Harbors. I also want to say that, again, it is a great demonstration of the unflinching sense of duty of our fire department, who they rush in, they do the job. However, the one thing that I am most concerned about, and this will come up, I'm certain, now that we know that we're going to have further discussions, the Public Safety Committee will be diving down into this further, which I greatly appreciate and anticipate. Some of the concerns that I have that I would like to see addressed, and I will not ask further questions here this evening. However, my questions I will submit, and they will have to do with, it's the event in real time is what I'm most concerned about, and the air monitoring. And I do appreciate the additional information that you've provided, but it did generate a bunch of other questions of mine, and how that air monitoring was done during the event. I'm not a chemist, but certainly one of the previous speakers has a training, and I know from your engineering training in the college that you had gone to, that is a requirement, as well as his professional qualifications. So I appreciate that for adding that information, Councilor Ryan. And so I'm really concerned about, one was, and I'm not looking for answers from you right now, but again, it's the air quality, how it's deployed, how it's mounted, what it actually checks for, how often are they calibrated, et cetera, the reliability of your load manifests, et cetera. I'm happy to hear that you will be doing away with the staging areas as it's currently constructed, and that it will become more of a self-contained and will have fire suppression. But I would be further questions I would like to have the committee ask is the reliability of the manifest in the sense that how accurate and complete are the contents within those staging areas as you saw them, types of inspections, et cetera. This evening, I know you have an investigation that's ongoing, and there are things that we cannot ask per se because of the nature of the investigation going on. But I did want to articulate what I find are very, very important aspects for us to prevent a similar thing happening again. And it's not just for Clean Harbors, but as Council Maglio really passionately articulated, was the entire danger zone, if you will, of a blast area and all the coexistence of many, many dangerous or combustible types of operations, chemicals, et cetera. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Madam
Counselor.
President.
Councillor Flaherty?
Thank you. We've talked a lot about air, and I'm going to circle back to that. But before I do that, I wanted to talk some about water. We know from what the fire department reported to us that something like 400,000 gallons of water was sprayed or employed in order to put this fire out. And there was a collection tank to where all the water went, and then that was taken out of the tank and stored, and that will be disposed of in the future, right?
Yeah, so ma'am, they're called frac tanks, which is roughly a 22,000 gallon tank to hold the water. We have 15 of them, so just doing the math, roughly around a little short of 400,000 gallons. So we'll do a full analytical on it, which we're in the process of doing, and have to dispose of that based on what that analytical shows us.
Okay, so I have two questions. One is, did you clean the tank that it was originally collected in so that the next time water collects in there and then you pump that water out into the Fore River, it will not contain residual contaminant?
Yes, so there's I won't get into the complexity of the treatment system, but it's basically a ion exchange carbon filtration system that all that media will be changed out before we would run any water through it. All the water, though, when the fire department was putting out the water, or the fire, the water flowed naturally to the low point in the plant, which is where it collected, and from there we pumped it into the tanks.
Okay, so that collection tank is clean, which is good news. The second question I have is, how do you know you collected all the water?
There is no longer any standing water there. So it goes to a low point, just like any low point, a puddle, and the water went there. We pumped it all off of there. There was no visible water any longer.
They sprayed 400,000 gallons of water onto those trailers, and gravity, your shore, took all of that water to the collection tank, and none of it seeped anywhere else or otherwise trickled away? No.
And the site's designed with containment, and so the water did not breach the containment, so that's how we checked and made sure that the water was contained. We collected all the water and then put it into these other containers that will then be shipped off-site, not to the treatment facility, but shipped off-site to a different disposal facility.
Did that happen by design so that you knew that if there was a fire around those trailers that you would have to handle a great deal of water, and so you positioned the trailers in a place where gravity would funnel the water to the collection tanks?
It's just naturally how the facility is set and designed. We're all water, even rainwater, so that the system's designed to treat the rainwater. So when it rains out, all the rain goes to that low point in the plant, and we collect it and run it through our treatment system.
Okay. So I'm going to leave behind water a little bit, because one of the things that concerns me is that we know that 3 trailers worth of hazardous materials were burned, and those materials are just totally consumed by flame.
Correct.
And the others were affected but perhaps not consumed. So that material went into the air, and then we tested the air and found that the air was fine, which I find difficult to accept.
I think the technical air folks can respond better than I, but most of that volatile organics is being consumed and burned off in the flame. Fire burns off the volatile organics.
And then there's going to be an air modeling study, which will identify where the plume went and perhaps give us some indication of a trail where anything that settled out of that fire may have fallen. Okay.
Yes.
And once that, depending on the outcome of that air modeling study, to what extent is Clean Harbors prepared to handle the cleanup that might be necessary for remediation so that residents aren't exposed to toxins?
That's what we do. We will follow the analysis.
So if a resident has some level of, I don't know, because we don't really know what's in those tanks, but I don't know, benzene, that has settled into their grass, you will come to their yard and clean the benzene out of their yard?
Yes.
Okay, I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I do want to recognize that our senators have been with us this evening, Senator Keenan and Senator Timilty, so thank you for joining us. And we also have our building inspector, Russ Forsberg, and our director of health, Mary Beth McGrath, so thank you also for being here this evening. Clean Harbors, I think you can sit down for now. We're going to move on to our public comment period. As a reminder, the way this is going to go is I will call you up to the podium, your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and then we will move on to the next speaker. And again, at the end of our public comment period, I will, if the mayor's office or Clean Harbors would like to respond to anything, they may. This will not be your last opportunity to be in touch with the council or representatives from Clean Harbors on this issue. All right, so with that, I have Myrnie Clifton. I don't have an address. If you're here and like to come to the podium?
I'm here, I'm declining.
Okay, thank you very much. Janet Svensson, 35 Linden Street.
Hi there. I'm Janet Swenson, and I was active against Clean Harbors with the toxic waste incinerator, and you were not great people at that time, believe me. Most of my questions have been
through the microphone.
Oh,
please.
sorry. Most of my questions have been answered. At the time when we defeated the toxic waste incinerator, there was supposed to be a medical waste incinerator put in place. Obviously, that hasn't happened. Is that correct?
We'll take that question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. One thing I'm asking, water doesn't, take care of all the chemicals, as we all know. Why can't the fire department get information on each one of those trailers as they come in and tell them what's in that trailer so that they can, if it needed to be, they could put foam or whatever it wouldn't, I don't know anything about fires, but they could put that on. Is that a question for Clean Harbors?
So thank you so much, Mrs. Svensson. What we're going to do is
Okay.
we're going to capture all the questions, and we're going to publish them on our website. We're going to make sure they all get answered. So if you have more comments or questions, we'll take them, and we're going to compile them.
That's good.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Our next person is Leland Dingy, 211 Glen Rose Avenue.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam President and Town Councilors. I want to thank you very much. I'm Leland Dingy, 211 Glen Rose Ave. I live right in the middle of where this facility is. I've been working on all the issues in that area for 25, 30 years now, so I think I'm pretty much an expert as to what's going on. The night of this particular incident with the fire at Clean Harbors, I was asleep. That was probably about 11 o'clock at night. I didn't know what was happening until the next morning, and my wife said, "Oh, you should see the news. There's a fire at Clean Harbors." I panicked. Not in the usual sense. But I know the thought was, let's not warn all the neighbors because they might come down here, they might panic. I appreciate that thought, and as the mayor said earlier, he wishes he hadn't done it, and I do appreciate that also. There's no good answer in some of these situations. My big fear is there would be a fire down in that area, and it would spread. The reason I'm afraid, and what I want to bring to your attention here tonight, it's not just Clean Harbors. They had an accident. I don't mean to make it sound light, but it was an accident. Accident happened. I don't know what they're going to do to prevent any further accident to happen. That's what you're doing tonight. You're trying to find the answers to that. I am concerned about all the other facilities that are down there. The compressor station seems to be on everybody's mind, and that's one of them. If for some reason this incident that happened the other night at Clean Harbors caused a chain reaction throughout the basin, that compressor station could be problematic. We could have an issue that would jeopardize the lives and health and safety of all the residents in the Fall River Basin. That's something I think you all have to take into consideration when you're looking for the answers to how to solve the problem. One of the answers could be, yeah, don't license them. Probably don't like me saying that, but that could be one of the answers. The other answer is try and find a solution where the accidents don't happen. Then it wouldn't be an accident, would it? So, all right, so I've been, I guess my time is up.
You have 20 more seconds.
21 seconds left. Please pay attention. Thank you very much for having this meeting. I hope we continue, and I'm always available.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mr. Dingy. Councilor Ryan?
Chairman, I just want to say, Lee Dingy, the first president of the town council, a role model to so many of us. I look at, see Lee and Dave and Mike and all the people that are so active in East Braintree and have done such a great job for them, have been a role model to me for so long, and thank you for all you do for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Next, I have Susan Dashler, 215 Forest Street in Norwell.
Hi. I just wanted to also say I've recently moved to Norwell, but I've been working with Fracs now for 8 years. I moved out of the incineration zone from the compressor station in 2019 and moved to Quincy down by Wollaston Beach. So I'm still very much part of this issue. And also my sister and my brother-in-law and my 2 nephews live in Idlewell section. And on that note, the plume that headed towards Idlewell was noted by various air quality monitors that Fracs has worked so diligently. And I'm hoping that people will also consider that information. And it's very distressing to know that we still don't know what was in the plume. And a robocall the next AM would not have been adequate. Also, Councilor Maglio, thank you very much for pushing the idea that we absolutely need a comprehensive notification and evacuation plans for the whole Four River Basin. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Dashler. Next, we have Lorraine Liston, 118 Beechwood Road.
Hi, thank you for hearing me out. And I want to say, first of all, thank you to the fire department. You guys had quick response, professional. We'd be lost without you. And another thing I would like to say is we get robocalls 2 to 3 times a month from our mayor for collections of food for the food pantry, movies for kids, walks, lake trash pickup. But when there is a fire at a hazardous waste plant, we got nothing.
Folks,
I sleep with my windows open. I fell asleep early that night. I fell asleep with the window open all night. I got nothing. Nothing except whatever was coming into my window. You did know the air quality. You even said so until the next morning. You could have called and said, we're erring on the side of caution. Please keep your windows closed until you hear from us further. We should have gotten something, and you really dropped the ball, Mr. Mayor. We deserve better. Thank you.
folks, thank you. Thank you so much. If we can hold the applause, because that eats into folks' time, thank you so much. Alice Arena, 6 Blueberry Street, Weymouth. Alice, are you here?
Thank you for holding this meeting, and thank you for allowing me to speak. So just a couple of things. One of the things that I'm hearing from the fire department and from Clean Harbors, and Tetra Tech did not speak, but when they are measuring the air quality and they're talking about the volatile organic compounds, I'm not hearing that they have these separated out. So you have benzene or you have toluene, but do you have them separated out and do you have them measured? Possibly even more important in this fire is you had a combination of volatile organic compounds being burned. You also had barrels that were marked apparently waste methanol and waste toluene. So it's not just one chemical that you're dealing with, but the waste that is inside of it. What's the waste? Is it heavy metals, things like lead and cadmium? There's no way for you to know. So the bigger problem in all of this, and this is a problem that really isn't being spoken about, is that these VOCs attach to something we call PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, that's the micron size of it. This is the stuff that gets deep into your lung, causes cancer, COPD, all kinds of lovely things. And so these toxins attach onto that, and that's what gets in your lungs. So you cannot deny that the air quality monitors around the basin that we have placed, and also the state's monitors on the Calpine property, spiked. They were in the red for almost 3 hours on the night of the fire. And so that means they were 50 and below is in the green. One of them picked up 162 parts per million. This is a danger zone, and this is when people get sick. And so long-term health outcomes because of this, we're not even talking about that yet. So this is something that people need to think about, that it's not just one chemical, it's multiple chemicals, they're combined together, they attach to the PM 2.5, and this goes into your lungs. So it's disingenuous for people to say, oh, don't worry about it, the air quality is fine. It is not fine, and it was not fine then. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just so folks know, one gavel tap is you have 30 seconds remaining. Thank you so much, Ms. Arena, for being with us this evening. And then when the full time is up, I'll tap twice, and hopefully that will be a little less distracting than me interrupting you. And thank you.
She made a great point. There is a DEP air monitoring station across the water there. Could we get the results of that station? The numbers? I don't know if somebody's here from the DEP tonight.
Why don't we,
Yep, thank you.
We'll
Just
take
another
that one.
question.
Yep, we will definitely take that one and make sure we get all of the air quality results. And thank you for that. Nita Richa? Sorry if I mispronounced your last name. 49 Sterling Street.
Hi, I'm Nita Richa. I live on Sterling Street. I just have a couple of things to say. I was a member of the local assessment committee. I think I'm the last one alive. I'm a little nervous. I'm 87 years old. Years ago, we fought Clean Harbors because they wanted to put a hazardous waste incinerator up and also a pathological incinerator. I was on the Site Safety Council with a bunch of people that some of them are here. I just want to say that with the trucks that go in and out of Clean Harbors, each and every one of them have to have papers. These papers were called the Cradle to Grave Manifest. I don't understand why they were having trouble trying to find out what was in those trailers. A friend of mine, Jerry Hughes, who was very active fighting Clean Harbors, and I used to go into the State House regularly. And we went to the bookstore and got this book that gave you everything that was being shipped in and out of this facility. It's not, they also have the placards. I was sorry to hear that the placards got burnt, but there should have been papers in the office at Clean Harbors so that they could know how to fight these chemicals, because some of them shouldn't have any water. It would just make it worse. And they probably had to use other chemicals to fight the chemicals. We were more concerned about the health, welfare, and safety of the residents in East Braintree and across the river. At the time that we were fighting Clean Harbors, there was something like 38,000 people in Braintree, but it went up to over 100,000 during the day because of all the stores, the plaza, and everything. I was also concerned about the evacuation plan, and we were told that, well, I was reading something that Clean Harbors had put on the internet. It seems that they took very good care of their employees for an evacuation plan.
Thank you so much, Ms. Richa. That's the 3-minute limit, but we will take all of your comments, and thank you for being here tonight.
Okay.
And please, you can, if you have further comments or questions, please, you can email them to us, or I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chrissy Brady, 133 Arbor Way Drive.
How you doing? My name's Chrissy Brady. I'm the president of the East Braintree Civic Association, and I'm not going to sit here and go over and over everything that you guys have so eloquently stood up for against Clean Harbors and the whole area. But
Ms.
what
Brady,
I am,
can you just speak into the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I have a deep voice. What I am going to say is that we are going to stand up for East Braintree Civic. We are going to stand up for our residents. We're going to reiterate that we will work diligently to protect the residents of East Braintree regarding this fire and future safety plans from Clean Harbors. We're going to continue to request of our town and our emergency responders plans for notifications and mock drills in case of emergencies, not only at Clean Harbors, but Citgo and the compressor station. We want to prove to our residents that evacuation plans that are written up actually work for our residents, that they're not just something written on a piece of paper. Those mock drills will prove that to the residents. We're going to press Clean Harbors for air quality monitoring and a permanent monitoring system to be placed in our community. We're going to also ask that an air quality monitoring company that works for the residents and not Clean Harbors be hired, and so we can feel confident that we are being assisted in that. Historically, the East Braintree Civic has proven itself as a group who cares deeply for our community and works to ensure the safety of our residents and the betterment of our town, and we will continue to do that for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brady. Michael Lang, 74 Cotton. Sorry, I can't read. You can read this up.
This is hard.
Now,
3
thank
minutes?
you.
I got 3 minutes? Wow. First of all, Mr. Councilor O'Brien, I wanted to tell you that we're looking at the data. You don't have to worry about it. We got you covered. Anyway, let me go on my fixed stuff. My name is Michael Lang. I'm the environmental coordinator for the East Braintree Civic Association. For the past 45 years, the East Braintree Civic Association has been telling the elected officials of the 3 Four River Basin towns that you are building a bomb in the basement. Any one of the volatile facilities, you're cutting into my 3 minutes, any one of the volatile facilities in the basin could be the spark that ignites the bomb. Thursday, February 16th was Clean Harbors' turn. The 3 communities have to consider themselves very lucky. A few days later, the Enbridge compressor was scheduled to vent a large amount of gas to the atmosphere. Well, Enbridge would tell you that the gas magically rises and disappears. That is not always the case. The failed Clean Harbors hazardous waste incinerator proposal brought out the fact that the Clean Harbors site is impacted by a meteorological effect called coastal zone inversion, which keeps pollutants from rising. My own experience kayaking on the Fore River supports the high level of wind coming off the ocean. Additionally, the Fore River residents do not have to look out the window to know if a ship is offloading at Citgo. The strong gasoline smell envelops the whole area. The offloading facility abuts and is right behind the Clean Harbors facility. You would think that past regulators would have understood the deadly potential of packing these volatile facilities so closely together and require a high level of safety infrastructure. However, in all of the regulatory agencies I have dealt with, the common factor, as noted in a recent PIMSHA Inspector General report, is some perceive that industry and PIMSHA are not sufficiently separate, and some express doubt about the leadership's commitment to a fostering of a positive safety culture. While the quote is about PIMSHA, it could be applied to most of the regulatory agencies. The Fore River Basin needs an independent safety study to ensure the health and safety of its residents and first responders. Right now, Clean Harbors has moved their trucks and equipment to the abutting Quirk DPA property and demolishing a building in anticipation of building 2 new ones. I would encourage the town of Braintree to withhold any expansions until it can be determined that it would not adversely impact the health and safety of the Fore River residents. I have a couple of things from the last speakers. They made a few mistakes on what they said. First of all, the incident report, the fire incident report, noted 2,000 gallons of fuel. The fire chief mentioned 5,000 gallons. So, I mean, this is what I'm up against all the time.
Mr. Lang, thank you very much. And all of your comments will be submitted into the record. And I know you sent us some in writing as well.
Yes, I hope you got them. Thank you.
Next, we have Jean Giagrande, 82 Wilkins Road.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. I have to say congratulations to Elizabeth Maglio for her wonderful presentation about a plan and also about residents' participation in that plan, and also for the education process that needs to go. And I'm an advocate. I'm on the Charter Commission, and I know the infrastructure is very important. So I'm just advocating that we take it into consideration. And I have a list of people that would be part of an advisory board for that venture. Thank you very much. And thank you to the fire department for all your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, David Oliva, 172 Edge Hill Road.
Hi, my name is David Oliver, 172 Edge Hill Road in Braintree. And I guess the fact that this was so preventable that it was spontaneous combustion makes it just that much worse, where this is what you people do. This is what you're experts at. I mean, if there was somebody drove into one of the trucks, or if it got struck by lightning or anything like that, you would understand. But this is something that every high school kid that ever took shop class knows about internal combustion and how to prevent it. This should have been prevented. It should have been dealt with your expertise, not the way it was. In 1974, maybe, I went to the AMC Winter School, which was, we spent a week wandering around the White Mountains. But I remember the kids would always ask the instructors for survival tips and this and that. And what the instructor would tell us is that the best way to deal with emergencies is not to let them happen, to be prepared so that you don't get into that situation. And I've always tried to remember that. If you do it, think about it, and if you're proactive, it shouldn't happen. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. And thank you to the fire department for doing such a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Oliva. Next, I have Brian Keegan, 43 Anna Road in Weymouth.
Yeah, hi, I live
Thank you.
I live across the cove. I'm kind of disappointed that the DEP didn't stand up and speak. I think they should be almost the lead agency on this. I heard a statement that said the air quality was well within norms. You know, that's an erroneous statement that may never be proven. How many gallons were in all the trailers? Was that like 10,000 gallons? How much of that was consumed by fire? 5,000? Where'd the other 5,000 go? It's in the water, it's in the air.
Mr. Keegan, just if you can speak into the microphone. So
As
we
the
can pick you
temperature in
up.
the air
Thank you.
increases from the fire, more volatility is going to occur with the chemicals. More are going to get released. Less are going to get burned, not more. If there were 5,000 gallons released, was that in violation of the permit itself? Is that a reportable quantity that should be having its own tracking number? What was the prevailing wind direction? I haven't heard anyone talk about that. Was it over towards Quincy, Weymouth, Braintree? Finally, on the spontaneous combustion, I understand spontaneous combustion very well. It's not an easy thing to predict. It's not an easy thing to track. It's not even an easy thing to measure. There's always a lot of discussions about what that actually means. But it should be something that's pretty well characterized in a waste characterization form. So I hope that whole procedure under which waste gets approved and accepted gets totally changed in this process from the state level down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. That was the last person who had signed up in advance. If there's other residents who wish to speak, please approach the podium, need your name and address, and you'll be afforded 3 minutes to speak. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Council President, thank you so much for having me. My name is Greg Shanahan. I'm a member of the Weymouth Town Council. For the record, I live at 1052 Middle Street in Weymouth. I'm just here tonight to remind the folks from Clean Harbors that, this is a multi-town issue. And as much as we have had reports about soot landing over on Idlewell, I can't imagine that the marshes over behind the boatyard and whatnot weren't impacted. And I hope you plan on involving the town of Weymouth as well as the town of Braintree and Quincy. It's ironic that I'm here this evening. I spent an awful lot of my adolescent and teenage years joining my father and his friends in protesting Clean Harbors. And the irony wasn't lost on me this evening. So I look forward to hearing, not only as a resident of Weymouth, but as an elected official of Weymouth, what's going on in terms of testing and whatnot. And I hope that it's not only encompassed to your own property, but also to the surrounding communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilor Shanahan.
Counselor, if you can leave your contact information with our clerk of the council, and if you can leave your contact information with our clerk, we'll keep you notified of future meetings for us to invite
Certainly,
you.
and thanks so much for letting me crash.
Yep. Always welcome. Come right up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jody Purdy Quinlan, 152 Middle Street, Weymouth. I'm the executive director of the Four River Watershed Association. I was hired by the Four River Watershed Association 24 years ago. Wow. And I had just conceived my son the day before, literally, via IVF. So I know the state very well. Our organization has tried very hard from the beginning to get the towns of Weymouth, Braintree, and the city of Quincy to work together in protecting the residents and the environment surrounding the Four River Basin. We fought 24 years ago. Mike Lang is here. He was amazing at what he was doing for us back then in the East Braintree Civic Association to try to prevent the north parcel from ever being developed with any more industry. And we have a permit from the Energy Facility Siting Board saying that nothing should be built on the north parcel without discussing it with the Four River Watershed Association and the town of Weymouth. Unfortunately, the way politics go, we weren't included. And the north parcel was sold for $13 million to Enbridge. And we now have a bomb in our basin underneath the $244 million bridge that we paid for. We paid for that, all of us. Next to the MWRA pumping station, the $40 million sewer interceptor that we paid for. They put a bomb. And that bomb, if that bomb decides to blow up like the one did down in East Braintree in the 1940s, killing 4 people, the compressor station. And we have all of these 3 power plants, 3 gas-fired power plants, 3 tank farms. We all know it's there. And yes, Clean Harbors is an organization that goes out and cleans up these kind of messes. This was bad. This was real bad, guys. This isn't good, and this has to be addressed. But the most important thing that has to be addressed in these 3 towns, the 3 city towns, whatever you want to call us, need to get together to figure out what's going to happen. Because we all just saw what happened down in Ohio, in East Palestine, okay? And I don't want to see that happen to North Weymouth, Weymouth Landing, East Braintree, Quincy Point, Germantown, Howes Neck. Like, what are we going to do?
Thank you very much. Are there any other residents who wish to speak?
Hi.
Hi.
Ed Baroni, 108 Glen Rose Ave, Braintree. I'm curious why nobody from the water department was invited here, or if they were. As Chief said, fire hydrants are on them, and I'd like to know if the hydrants are on public property or private property, and who's responsible for testing them. When the last time they were tested, and is that public record? And I'd like follow-up on the next meeting from Clean Harbors. Everything they did was reactive. We need a proactive plan. Excuse me. And as soon as possible, should have been a week before the fire. You know, I know that you said you're planning on doing stuff as soon as possible. It should have been done already. I think you know that. Excuse me. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Megan Feldposh, 61 Wilkins Road in Braintree, East Braintree. And thank you, everybody. I want to thank everyone who's speaking out in support. As residents in East Braintree, we really appreciate people taking the time, and we appreciate everything that you're doing and the passion that you have, especially Councilor Maglio, who represents our district. So thank you very much. I agree with so many comments, but in the essence of time, it's safety. Why weren't the hydrants working? Why weren't residents notified? I live in a district with 2 young children, and we walk to school. We walked to school the next morning and stood outside at lineup for 15 minutes and didn't know anything had happened. Were the kids in danger? Were we in danger? And now what about the ramifications? Playgrounds, a ball field in East Braintree. Is this contaminated land that we are now having to deal with our children, and we don't know because they're not testing the land yet? When will that happen? I'm sorry I'm raising my voice. My last question is, what if this fire had happened in the middle of a planned release of all the gas? What would happen? What's the safety plan? We feel very unsafe, and we need to know how we can feel safe so we don't want to move away with our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the questions that have been posed tonight, we are recording them all. They will be answered by the appropriate parties.
How you doing? I'll be quick. My name is Ed Cowan of 56 Wilson Ave, Weymouth. And I just want to say, like, the companies in that area, the Fall River Basin, especially the ones that are dealing with toxic stuff, fuel, fertilizers, those companies should be held to a higher standard than any of the companies in town. And like you say you want to work with the town council, cool. Prove it. You know what I mean? Like, hand in hand. A lot of good people in here fighting the compressor station. Like, that's bad news. And there's so many things like that in that area. I think people are starting to wake up to that, though. I'd be concerned about the fire hydrants, too. The notification system, like, to let residents know. And like, when was that air monitor, when did that first get on site? Like, at what time, by whom, like, who's responsible for that? Like, how could you be fighting a fire and telling what's going up in the air? You know what I mean? Like, there's just some questions I want to ask, but thank you for your thought about it and for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participation. Do you need a microphone? Okay. We will come to you. Yeah.
So go ask her the question and come up.
Yeah.
Sue, ask her and ask her.
Thank you, Councilor Mackin.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry about
Go
that.
right ahead, take your time, and thank you for participating.
Oh, no problem. So my name is Ann Coteen Leland, and I live at 550 Liberty Street in Braintree. And I think this has been an extraordinary event, and I thank all of you for participating. I think it's really awful that we're having to be here under these circumstances. And I want to address one point, if I might, to Clean Harbors. You
have to, you can address them, but you have to speak into the mic, and they'll get the question.
So the point I was going to make was, you guys had a couple of occasions made the point that you're continuing to learn from this. You are not in an industry where you have the luxury of learning in the future. You should have done research. We count on you for doing research and knowing this. We bring you to the table because you have done the research and because you know it. You are, like, this is not the time for you all to be learning. Obviously, we all continue to learn, but like, it's pretty scary. When you said that, I thought, you're continuing to learn. Wait, everyone's lives are in danger while you're learning. I think that's not a particularly valid point right now. I think two other things that were interesting. One was, why would Clean Harbors use placards that melt? Like, what does that mean? Like, I was trying to listen really carefully, but I don't know, I didn't catch how absolutely important it was for the firefighters to know the exact composition of what was in the holding tanks and whatnot. But regardless, like, placards that melt? I don't get it. I really don't get that. And the third thing is that I think we are so blessed, and I don't think anyone mentioned this yet. The weather played such a giant, giant role with a tiny little bit of difference in the wind speed or the wind direction. Like, half of this neighborhood could have been up in smoke. Millions of, many, not millions, but many, many people could have died just with a change in wind direction. Not because the firefighters and the fire department wasn't Herculean in their efforts, because you were, but there's Mother Nature and then there's the fire department. Even with, all the other towns, I forgot what, something aid, or whatever. But I mean, I think the thing is, the weather's giant, but we can't be relying on good weather when we have an accident. We have to have a plan in place, and a lot of the residents have already brought this up. But I think that, why do we not have written procedures that are handed out or mailed to the residents, all residents in the town? And of course, I'm sure in Weymouth and whatnot too. But I don't understand, like, we need to have basic procedures in place. I mean, obviously nobody knows in any one accident what kind of, specificity you're going to need. But I think there ought to be a really clean, crisp 5-point plan. If this happens, this happens. And there really is no excuse for not having the residents in the immediate area.
Thank you, Ms. Leland.
To know it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other residents wishing to speak this evening? Okay, we do have some emails and letters that came into the council that before we have anybody else answer or speak to any of the comments this evening, I would like to read those into the record, and I'm asking for some assistance from my colleagues. But I will start with Michael Radigan, 61 Common Street. More fire hydrants on Hill Avenue. Large capacity water main on Hill Avenue. Working hydrants near Cork. Councillor Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. This email comes to the Mayor's Office, Chief James O'Brien, and all town councilors from Kelly Cobb Lemire at 30 Mount Vernon Avenue. Dear Mayor Koukouros, Fire Chief O'Brien, and Braintree Town Councilors, I am sending this quick email to share my ongoing concerns and solutions regarding the various toxic sites and harmful environmental threats affecting the people of Braintree and surrounding areas. First, I want to thank the fire departments of Braintree, Quincy, Weymouth, and Holbrook for containing the hazard as quickly and safely as possible. We know that this chemical fire could have been much worse. Between the compressor station, Clean Harbors, chemical fire, and 2 million gallons of raw sewage released into the Fore River, it's obvious to anyone paying attention that we are slowly being poisoned. I don't make this statement to be overly dramatic, as scientists and medical research has long proven that most cancers and deadly diseases are environmental. However, this latest incident makes it apparent that we need environmental justice on a local level. Clean air and water is essential for good health, and the people of Braintree should not have to continue to breathe or consume toxins from the compressor station, Clean Harbors, the MWRA fertilizing, pelletizing plant, Twin Rivers, Calpine, and Beld every single day. At the very minimum, I would like to suggest the following. 1, implementation of a townwide emergency communication system to notify residents of any and all future situations, no matter the time or day. 2, that BEMA, working with the state and local officials, develops an evacuation plan. 3, introduce and support a water quality protection ordinance. And 4, ensure follow-up by our public health officials as to the possible harmful effects of the chemicals and hazardous materials spread, and to make these findings available to the public. Thank you for your work, and I appreciate your consideration. Best, again, that was Kelly Cobb-Lemire.
Thank you, Councilor Hume. Councilor Maglio, I believe you have a letter that was submitted as well.
I do. So this letter was submitted by the Greater Boston Physicians for Social Responsibility, and I will list their names at the end. It was written to me, Dear Councilor Maglio, and it was sent to the rest of the council. We write to you as members of Greater Boston Physicians for Social Responsibility and physicians with expertise in public health and occupational medicine. We previously wrote to you on February 20th calling for an immediate and comprehensive investigation of the public health and safety consequences of the February 16th explosion at the Clean Harbors facility in Braintree. We have closely followed the information that has subsequently emerged about the event, and we are writing to highlight the following concerns. The public has yet to be informed of the specific hazardous materials that were combusted and distributed in the air during the February 16th chemical fire. This indicates a failure of basic measures to track hazardous substances present at the Clean Harbors site. Multiple air quality monitors adjacent to the Clean Harbors site registered a spike in particulate matter, PM 2.5 levels, in association with the fire. These levels exceeded the 24-hour standard permitted by the EPA's National Ambient Air Quality Standard, which is 35 micrograms per cubic meter of air. We are not aware of any nearby air quality monitors that assessed levels of volatile organic compounds, which were certainly emitted during the fire. Such monitors should be installed in the Fore River Basin. The Clean Harbors facility fire demonstrates that the Fore River Basin lacks a public safety response plan that includes the capacity to deal with a large explosion or chemical disaster in this densely populated residential area. We again urge you to work with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to pursue a root cause analysis of this catastrophe, to push for tighter regulatory oversight of the Clean Harbors facility, to monitor the health of those affected by this chemical explosion, and to develop a comprehensive evacuation and emergency response plan for residents of the Fore River Basin. And that is signed by Dr. Philip Landrigan, Professor of Biology and Director, Program for Global Health at BC, Regina LaRocque, MD, MPH, Associate Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School, and Brita Lundberg, MD, Chair of the Board, Greater Boston Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Now from John Ford, 285 Pearl Street. Clean Harbors should be held accountable. They should excavate the site, remove all contaminated soil and incinerate it or dispose of it accordingly. No one can say the contaminated water is contained because it's not. The residents in the affected area should be personally warned not to grow vegetables or have their children play on or around the land affected by this accident. Also, for the record, before our elected officials take office, after they win their nominee, they canvass for votes. They go door to door. Has any official gone door to door on behalf of these residents that have been subjected to contamination? Has anyone gone door to door to invite them to speak at Town Hall on what they, as being directly affected, want to see happen? This does not directly affect me or my family, but it does. This town is where I reside. Is there a list of contaminants available? Please. There should be. This should be placed on the Braintree Town's website. Open and full disclosure. Is the EPA and DEP involved? Who is monitoring the housing of these chemicals? Did Braintree know that the combustibles were being stored in the trailers? Is there paperwork, manifest of the origin of these chemicals? Where did they come from? Where were they going? What are in the trailers? What quantity of chemicals are being stored? Why are they here? Which jurisdiction does the monitoring of this site come under? Is it health? Is it building? Please read for the record, John Ford, 285 Pearl Street. I think, Councilor Magley, I think you have the final one.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is from the Fore River residents against the compressor station. As you know from our Friday email and our press release, there was a fire at the Clean Harbors Toxic Waste Facility in East Braintree beginning around 10:30 on Thursday night, February 16th. More information has become available as to the nature of the chemicals that were burned and the level of hazard at the time of the fire and going forward. The list of chemicals burned is long, but here are just a few. Methyl tetrahydrofuran, 2-methylxylether, aliphatic hydrocarbons, waste gasoline, benzene, waste paint, waste xylene, waste methanol, and toluene. A standard Google browse will bring up the chemical information on the more complicated sounding compounds and their toxicity. Our old friends benzene, toluene, and xylene are, of course, part of the BTEX toxins you have heard us preach about over the years in reference to the off-gassing of the compressor station. You know they are toxic. You know there are no safe levels. Of possibly even greater concern are the waste barrels. What other compounds were in the waste methanol? We may never know. Most of the 75, 55-gallon barrels that burned were full of highly flammable compounds nearby. Reports are also coming out that adjacent to the fire were another 97 barrels of high BTU fuel that, if ignited by the fire, would have given us a totally different outcome in the basin and especially in East Braintree. We acknowledge and thank the fire departments of Braintree, Quincy, Weymouth, and Holbrook for keeping those other barrels out of the mix and for containing this hazard as quickly as possible. A few things we need to consider are, as with the possibility of an emergency at the compressor station, why was there no coordinated effort to alert residents of the fire and possible dangers? We know there is no evacuation plan in any of the 3 basin communities. We know that quick and safe evacuation is not even possible from the 1990 report on the Clean Harbors Waste Incinerator Plan. Will there be a follow-up by public health officials as to the possible harmful effects of the particulate matter spread by the fire? Our purple air monitors and the DEP's monitor all picked up dangerously high levels of PM 2.5 and VOCs at the time of the fire. Whether or not the VOCs are of concern, the PM 2.5 certainly is. Our communities have the right to know their exposure risks and if there are things they need to be watching out for with their health and the health of their children, loved ones, and even pets. When will the basin communities, with assistance from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, finally issue a comprehensive plan of safety, communication, and evacuation for our residents, or simply admit that we are a sacrifice zone for industry? None of the communities issued a reverse 911 during or after the fire. Maricocoro stated that they did not want to cause panic. That's cold comfort for those close to the fire's origins or those downwind in Weymouth and Quincy breathing toxins of unknown origin without their knowledge. As one elected official stated, when does worry of hysteria translate into liability for the towns? And not to put too fine a point on it, we think more highly of our fellow residents and believe that more information is better than being kept in the dark. Dodging a disaster is not a reason for complacency. While this was not the compressor this time, these questions are pertinent to all of the toxic industries in the basin. We, in our environmental justice neighborhoods, breathe the toxins from the compressor, from Clean Harbors, the MWRA fertilizer pelletizing plant, Twin Rivers, Calpine, and Beld every single day. We are left to our own devices on how to escape should there be an emergency. And our state public health officials blamed us for our ill health in the disgraced health impact assessment issued for the compressor station. This is unacceptable. As always, thank you for all you do, and stick with us in solidarity, the FRAX team.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Councilor O'Brien?
Just one comment. I also have one letter that I will submit for the record. from a resident of Lenox Farms. Her name is Carol Ann Ricardo. I will submit it for the record since that
Thank
was
you.
the last one. And lastly, I just want to note, and please note this, ladies and gentlemen, October 6th, 2020, Councilor O'Brien referred the evacuation procedure to the town via the Public Safety Committee of this body, and it still sits in the Public Safety Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Brien. And to Councilor O'Brien's point, thank you for bringing that up. Any letters or emails that were submitted today, we will make sure your questions are answered. It will all be in the public record, and we will also be taking this matter up again on March 21st. At this time, I would like to offer, if anyone, Mayor Kokoros, the fire chief, or anyone from your office would like to say anything, and I know, again, this is still under investigation and will be continued on a future council meeting.
Just wanted to thank the council for holding this meeting, and thank all of the speakers for their input, and we certainly we got a lot of work to do. We're going to roll our sleeves up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anyone from Clean Harbors who would like to respond?
So we just want to thank everybody for your comments. We appreciate all the feedback. We understand your concerns. We are committed to working with you to address those concerns, and we're going to keep showing up, and we're going to keep coming back, and we're going to keep working with you until we can continue to ensure that we have the safety of not only the community of Braintree, the communities around Braintree, of taking ownership and accountability for the safe operations of our facilities. And we're going to continue, we care about you, we care about this community, and we're going to continue to work with you to make sure that we can keep making it a safe place to live and work. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I want to say to all the residents who have joined us this evening, whether you're here at Town Hall or watching from home, time is a gift, and you've chosen to spend it with us because this seriousness and gravity of this event, without question, warrants that the council continues to pursue this matter. So as I stated earlier, this will be heard again at the March 21st, 2023 meeting. Please contact us between now and then, BraintreeMA@towncouncil.gov. No, towncouncil@braintreema.gov. I'm sorry about that. With any additional questions or comments so that we can make sure that your questions and concerns are being addressed and heard. And I will just ask if there's any last comments from my colleagues. Councilor Ryan. Is there a
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
Motion and a second for a 5-minute recess. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good idea. Thank you, Charlie. Calling the council back to order. Councilors can take their seats, please. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. The council's general business will continue at this time. I ask that any individual conversations please carry on outside of the auditorium. Thank you. Okay, we will be moving on to our business this evening, or other business this evening, first with the approval of minutes from January 3rd, 2023.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of January 3rd, 2023 from Councilor Ryan and a second from Councilor Hume. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to our old business this evening, 23006, Mayor, reappointment, the Braintree Local Cultural Council, H. Emily Ego, or take up any action relative thereto. And Chief of Staff Taub, I think your final night at the podium with us.
For one last time, Madam President, if I might, if you would indulge me, the three items on this evening, 006, 007, and 008, are all reappointments to the Cultural Council, and with your permission, I would suggest we take those as a collective this evening.
Are there any objections to that from members of the council? Seeing none, we will take up 23006, 007, and 008 with one vote. I'm going to refer to Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee for their recommendation.
Thank you, Madam President. Early this evening, the Ways and Means Committee met and voted unanimously for motion 23006, appointment of H. Emily Ego, 023007, reappointment of Jennifer Lynn, and motion 23008, reappointment of Ann Stewart, all to the Braintree Local Cultural Council.
Thank you very much, Council Reynolds. Chief of Staff Taub?
Thank you, Madam President. These three individuals were originally appointed to the Cultural Council in 2020 and have agreed to continue to serve in that capacity. The Cultural Council is part of a larger state cultural council and works hard to support the arts and humanities through various grant funding applications and programming for our residents, and we would be requesting the council's approval of their reappointments for a subsequent three-year term.
Thank you very much. Any councilors like to speak on this matter? I will just say I know all three of these women. I think they're fantastic picks for this particular board and very appreciative of the service they give to our community in many capacities, one of which is their service on the Cultural Council. So fully support this evening. All right, with that, Councilor Ryan, do we have a motion?
Do you want one motion for all three, or do?
Yes.
Okay, so motion upon the request of His Honor, the Mayor, the Town of Braintree, through the Braintree Town Council, in accordance with Sections 3-3 of the Charter of the Town of Braintree, to approve the reappointment of H. Emily Ego, Jennifer Lynn, and Ann Stewart to the Braintree Cultural Council. So moved.
We have a motion by Counselor Ryan, a second by Counselor Hume. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you very much. It's been my privilege.
Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to our new business this evening. Again, I would offer, if there's no objections from my colleagues, to move all of the motions under new business to their respective committees.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilors Ryan, Hume, and Maglio. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Counselor O'Brien?
I'm a no for 12, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Thank you. I'm a yes for all of this.
Thank you, Counselor O'Brien. Clerk Samini, do you have that recorded? Okay.
You're no on the phone?
Okay. As always, I want to say thank you so much to our BCAM crew. They stick with us every council meeting, and it's a huge service to the residents in our community to bring the council to your laptop, your computer, or your TV. So thank you, BCAM. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.